The wind howled like a warning across the dry plains, carrying dust that clung to everything it touched, fences, boots, and the fragile hope of a man who was running out of time. Ethan Cole stood at the edge of his ranch, staring at land that once breathed life but now lay cracked and defeated beneath the unforgiving Wyoming sky. The cattle were thinning, the water well had nearly dried, and the bank's final notice sat folded in his pocket like a death sentence. If something didn't change soon, everything his father had built would be gone. He had always believed a man should face his battles alone. But desperation had a way of bending even the strongest pride. That's why, 3 weeks ago, Ethan had done something he never thought he would. He sent away for a mail-order bride. He didn't want love. He didn't expect companionship. What he needed was practical, someone to help manage the household, maybe bring a little stability to the chaos. Someone who wouldn't ask too many questions about a broken ranch and a broken man. Still, as the distant stagecoach wheels finally echoed across the valley, Ethan felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Doubt. What kind of woman would agree to marry a stranger living on the edge of ruin? The coach came to a stop in front of him, and the driver tipped his hat. "Delivery for you, Mr. Cole." Ethan swallowed hard. The door creaked open. And then she stepped down. She wasn't what he expected. Her dress was simple but clean, her posture straight despite the long journey. She carried no air of desperation, no sign of fear. Instead, her eyes, calm, observant, and quietly strong, met his with a confidence that unsettled him. "I'm Clara Bennett," she said gently. "I believe I'm your wife." Ethan blinked, caught off guard by her steady tone. "You came, willingly." A faint smile touched her lips. "Yes. I did." He hesitated, then nodded stiffly. "Well, welcome to a place that's barely hanging on." Clara glanced around at the dying fields, the sagging barn, and the thin cattle grazing on brittle grass. Most would have seen failure. But something flickered in her eyes. Not fear. Not regret. Something else. Something Ethan couldn't quite understand. And in that moment, as the wind whispered across the empty land, he had no idea that the quiet woman standing before him carried a secret that could change everything. The first few days passed in a strange silence. Clara settled into the house as if she had always belonged there. She cleaned, cooked, and repaired small things without being asked. But what struck Ethan most wasn't what she did, it was how she observed. She asked questions. Careful ones. "Why is that field unused?" Ethan shrugged. "Soil's dead. Won't grow a thing." "And the well?" "Drying up." "And the cattle?" "Dying slower than the land." He expected her to grow discouraged. Most would. But Clara didn't. Instead, one morning, Ethan woke to find her gone. Panic gripped him. He rushed outside, scanning the empty yard, until he spotted her in the far field, kneeling in the dirt. "What are you doing?" he called, striding toward her. Clara looked up, her hands covered in soil. "Learning." He frowned. "Learning what?" She held up a small clump of earth. "This land isn't dead, Ethan. It's exhausted." He let out a bitter laugh. "Same difference." "No," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. "It's not." There was something in her voice, something certain, that made him pause. "I grew up on a farm," she continued. "But not like this. My father, he believed in healing land, not abandoning it." Ethan crossed his arms. "You can't fix this. People have tried. People gave up too soon." Her words lingered in the air. For the first time in months, something inside Ethan stirred, not hope, not yet, but curiosity. "What are you saying?" he asked quietly. Clara stood, brushing the dirt from her hands. "I'm saying your ranch isn't dying, it's waiting." He stared at her. Waiting? It sounded foolish. But something in her calm certainty made it impossible to dismiss. "Show me," he said finally. And that's when everything began to change. Days turned into weeks, and Clara worked harder than anyone Ethan had ever seen. She introduced methods he had never heard of, rotating grazing patterns, digging shallow irrigation channels, mixing natural compost into the soil. It was slow, exhausting work. At first, Ethan doubted every step. But then, small changes appeared. The grass, once brittle and gray, began to show faint hints of green. The cattle grew stronger. Even the well, miraculously, began to refill as water was redirected and conserved. Ethan watched it all unfold like a miracle he didn't dare believe in. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in gold, he found Clara sitting quietly by the field. "You saved it," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Clara shook her head. "No. We saved it." Ethan sat beside her, staring out at the land that was slowly coming back to life. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "About your skill." She hesitated. And for the first time, the calm strength in her eyes wavered. "Because where I come from," she said softly, "it wasn't seen as a skill." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath. "My father taught me everything. But after he died, people said a woman had no place running land. They took everything from me." Ethan's chest tightened. "I came here," she continued, "because I didn't just need a home. I needed a chance to prove that what he taught me mattered." Silence settled between them. Ethan looked at her, not as a stranger, not as a convenience, but as someone who had fought her own battles and refused to lose. "You didn't just save this ranch," he said quietly. "You saved me." Clara's eyes softened. And in that moment, something deeper than partnership began to grow between them. The day the banker returned, he expected to claim the land. Instead, he found a ranch transformed. Fields of green stretched under the open sky. Cattle grazed strong and healthy. The air itself felt alive. Ethan stood tall as the man approached, no longer the desperate rancher he had once been. "This isn't possible," the banker muttered. Ethan smiled faintly. "It is when someone refuses to give up." The man said nothing more. He simply turned and left. And just like that, the ranch was theirs again. But the real victory wasn't the land. It was what they had built together. That evening, Ethan found Clara standing by the same field where everything had begun. "You could have left," he said. "Once things got better." Clara smiled gently. "I didn't come here just to fix a ranch." Ethan stepped closer. "Then why did you stay?" She met his gaze, her voice soft but certain. "Because I found something worth staying for." Ethan's heart tightened. For a moment, the world seemed to stand still, the wind, the sky, the quiet hum of life around them. Then he reached for her hand. And she didn't pull away. The land had been given a second chance. And so had they.